This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
Place to Be Nation, welcome back. I'm glad to have you here again, and I am so excited that we have finally gotten this remaster, as I told you last time, up and going. Of course, I am Miranda, not a new voice here, but if you're new to the podcast, welcome. I am Miranda, and this is Lady and the Beard. Of course, I couldn't be Lady in the Beard. Well, I could, but you know what? We're not going there. I can't be Lady in the Beard. It's just nope. So, with me today, one of my life friends in this thing called life, one of my best friends, and my co-host here is Kelley. Welcome, Kelley.
Thanks. Yeah, it'd be difficult to do Lady in the Beard without the beard, which is, I guess, me, because I have a beard.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could be both, but I'd really rather not.
Yeah, I get that. But yeah, it's good to be back. Our second episode, which it's good. I'm glad to. It takes us a little while to get these out because Miranda and I both have to deal with life and what it throws at you, and but we're gonna continue to chug along and try to put these out as best we can once a month-ish. But I just ask that everybody just stay patient. If you're returning and want to hear more from us, we're gonna keep plugging along. So thanks for listening.
Exactly. We're glad to be here. This is not our first go around. If you have not heard episode 1-ish, we're calling it remastered because Kelley and I actually podcasted together several years ago, and then the pandemic happened, and then I moved overseas, and then time zones and just stuff. But we've decided we really want to do this again. We enjoy doing it. So here we are with our new edition. And we decided to kind of change things up from even our original plan years ago. And what we're kind of going to do is last time we kind of reintroduced ourselves, talked about toxicity in fandom, which is unfortunate, but it is a huge thing and has been for about the past 5-6 years. But this time, what I'm going to do is basically give it over to Kelley. He has a topic that he has chosen, and he's kind of going to tell us a little bit about it. It's one of his favorite topics in nerd culture, pop culture. And I'm just going to kind of ask him questions along the way to understand it better, or maybe if there was a question that I've always had about this topic. And then next month, we're going to do it, change it up, where I will have a topic and he's going to ask me questions. And that's kind of what we're thinking of here. So if you have suggestions, maybe topics you would like us to cover, or things that maybe you've heard us on podcasts before, or you know us and you're like, hey, I really think you guys should cover this topic, then please send those our way. And we'll kind of add those to our list of where we want to go. Because sometimes we run out of ideas. It's not that we don't have them. It's just your brain goes, ee. So.
Yeah.
So you have chosen a topic that I actually am aware of, familiar of, but don't know everything. But it is one of, I would say, your favorite areas that you're going to kind of discuss with everyone today. So what did you choose to bring to the table today?
It's, I say a lot of things with comics. That's really my comics and D&D are kind of my two big passions. They're kind of one and one beside each other. I can't put one above the other, but within the comic realm, there's so many teams and individual characters and things like that. And, it's kind of hard to pick and choose what's your favorite, but I know because as long as I've been reading comics and been in the business, I've owned a comic book shop in the past. The Legion of Superheroes is a DC team that has been around, since the 1954 58, I believe, 1958. So it's been around. It's been around a good bit. Um, the Legion of Superheroes, if you wanted to kind of compare it to like a Marvel equivalent, it would be something like the Avengers post issue 200 when the government came in and said, "Hey, you only can have 7 members. You got to get rid of the rest." Because prior to that, the Avengers had a pretty big, you know, group of people that were members, a pretty big membership. But the thing about the Legion, it's set in the 31st century, so it's set in the future, and you have Superman, Superboy has been linked to this group, and part of its origin and history. The the creators, the writer and artist, was Otto Binder, and the artist was Al Placitino. I may be butchering that last name, and if I apologize. But they were the creative team behind the Legion back in the day, and they have had several iterations over the years. They have been rebooted quite a few times.
Like most things.
Yeah, like most things. There always seems to be the same kind of setup with each reboot. So you have like the 3 core members that were kind of always in the forefront. You have, and these names are going to seem old school, but then again, you have to think this was, like I said, this was created back in the late 50s and ran through the 60s. So the 3 main characters that kind of helped create the Legion, with a character called R.J. Brand, who was the president of I think president of Earth at the time. They saved his life, and he was like, "Hey, you 3 kids, you'll make a great team. You should do something with that." But you had Cosmic Boy, who had from his world, everybody on his world has this gift of magnetism. They can kind of use their magnetic powers for a variety of different effects. And then you had Lightning Lad, who on on his world, it's really weird. Him and his sister got powers, and I think his older brother got powers through an accident that happened to him. And then you have Saturn Girl, whose whole world itself, like Cosmic Boys, have telepathic powers or mental powers. So these 3 main characters are the ones that kind of started the Legion and helped expand the team over the years. They added quite a few members. One of the tenets that the Legion is that to become a member, you have to have powers, and they have to be natural. They have to be powers that you possess. They can't be, something that you like a suit of armor, like Iron Man. It can't be, gadgets and stuff like that.
Can't be Batman.
It can't be Batman. You've got to have some sort of natural ability or power that, is not derived from some item or, and that kind of made the team kind of interesting, because all of these characters that they had that they have in the team all have a variety of different powers, and they're kind of let me pull up a list so that
While you're pulling up the list, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So like the first one came to mind really, and I was thinking, you said when it was like they had to have like natural powers, like not like Batman and stuff. It made me curious. Do you mean natural as in like they were just born that way, it just happened? Or would they have allowed people, say, like when we're talking about metahumans from like the world of like the Flash and stuff, there were so many people because of events that were would they be allowed? Or is it strictly like you needed to have like always had this.
No, no, like I just said, Lightning Lad and his sister, they were struck by some lightning beast on their planet.
Okay.
Their planet, um, everybody on the particular planet that Garth and his sister were born on, everybody, they have twins.
Okay.
Every couple, for some reason, it's not just, a chance of having twins. They are twins. Um,
I don't know how I feel about that.
yeah, it's well, I mean, this was all, like I said, written back in the day. But
Right. I know. I'm just like, whoa.
his family, or his parents, they actually had 3 children, so it was really an anomaly. So they had an older brother, or not an older brother, I think. Yeah, he was born without a twin, and then they came along later. Um, which I'm not going to get into a lot of that because that's a lot of story for that. But needless to say, they all got powers from this lightning beast. So
Okay.
yeah, to answer your question, you don't have to, um, if you're born with a power, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
If you get the power like through an accident, like Spider-Man could be a Legion member because he,
Okay.
became like the Hulk. The Hulk could be a member of the Legion. So yeah, yeah.
And then this is going to sound really bad, but for those of you that have ADHD, you'll get it. I had a second question, and I lost it.
That's all right. If it comes back, that's fine. I'm just going to go over some of the characters that have been members of the Legion. I'm going to try to pick out some of uh, the more unusual ones, and some of the ones that have like your powers that people are going to go, oh, okay, I see why.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, the first one I'm going to mention is somebody that is kind of one of my favorites, mainly because his powers are so ridiculous, but
Like absurd or
like absurd, but it's
okay.
odd. His code name has always been the same. They haven't really come up with a new or a change to his code name. His code name was Matter Eater Lad.
And I can already assume I know what he does, but
yeah. His whole planet has this ability because of some ecological change or something happened to the planet where their food stuff had gotten poisoned, but they grew this immunity and the ability to eat anything. Doesn't matter what it is. They can gain nourishment. They could eat anything. And so,
that
I
would have
mean,
its perks for sure.
yeah, it might. I mean, one of the pictures, if you look up Matter Eater Lad, it's going to be him
Mm-hmm.
eating through like a chain link fence.
He's like a goat.
Yeah, literally, it's goat people. But I just and on his on his costume, he has a tooth, which when I saw that the first time, I went, that's amazing.
Wait, and wasn't your dad a dentist?
My dad was a dental technician.
That's what I thought. So
And
that's even funnier to
it
me,
is
just for like personal reasons.
it is. And for a quick side note, if you're not sure what a dental technician does, okay, the dentist is the guy who says, okay, well, you need a crown, or you need a bridge, or you need a partial, because you've lost a tooth, or you need dentures. The dental technician is the person the dentist will instruct, hey, can you fabricate, and my dad would fabricate these things for people so that they could have their, smile back, and give them abilities, to be able to eat properly again.
Right.
Yeah, that's what a dental technician does. But Matter Eater Lad is my favorite just because of how absurd his powers are. But he has been a member and has been, kind of a focal point to the team in its various iterations. Another one that is a character called Dream Girl, and she has kind of a precognition ability that I believe her race has is this precog ability, and they use this character um, in Supergirl, the TV series. They
Okay.
introduced her, played by, I think, is a trans actress, and I
Oh,
can't think of
yes.
her name.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, she is. I follow her on TikTok, and she's a riot. But they made a part for her, and using this character. They also use Brainiac. Brainiac 5 is another character that they used in Supergirl to a really decent degree. I was skeptical.
Oh, I
Uh,
loved Brainiac. If you guys haven't watched Supergirl and you're a fan of any of the things we're talking about, I know it's off air officially, but highly recommend. Highly recommend.
yeah. I you know I kind of fell off the last season or two.
I did as well, but
Um I tried to keep. There were so many shows,
hmm
and so I may go back and check out the last two seasons, but there was just too many things trying to garner my attention. Um,
same.
you have another character. Her code name was Shrinking Violet, and she had the ability, of course, to shrink. Uh, you had another character called Colossal Boy, which they later changed his code name to Leviathan, which was a little cooler,
I
but he could
do
do the
know
opposite.
that one.
Yeah, he could grow really big, like uh, Giant Man or Goliath, like from Marvel. um, Now, another kind of interesting character they had, and this is a character who got his powers derived from being inside a space whale, and he was exposed to some energy or whatever, and his name is Ultra Boy.
So is
And
it like if Jonah became
in
a
fact,
superhero?
in fact his name is his first name is Joe, J-O, and his last is Nah, Nah, Joe Nah. I tell you, back in the day, I mean, these people pulled from all sorts of stuff, but his powers were real kind of weird because he had super strength and super speed, flight, invulnerability, what they called flash vision and pentravision, which is, I guess, being able to see through stuff. But he could only use one power at a time. He couldn't have all those powers at once. So, like if he was using his super strength, to hold up a building, he couldn't fly or use any of his other powers. I mean, if he had to fly somewhere, he would have to kind of throw off whatever he was holding up and access his flight powers. It's
I
really
like that
weird.
though. I mean, honestly, I know this sounds really crazy, but I think I like that so much because realistically, even as a human, we all have not superpowers, but talents, right? And most of us can't use all of our talents at one given time.
Yeah,
So I kind of like that. It makes it more like, I don't know, similar.
yeah.
It's not the word I was looking for, but yeah.
I thought to myself later in life when I was looking over the characters and stuff, I thought maybe they did that, which was really a cool thing to do back in the day because they didn't want to make this character just like Superboy or just like,
hmm
because technically he is, but he has to access those powers, at one at a time, which would make you would have to really be quick on your, quick, thinking to be able to switch between one or the other. So yeah, he's another one of the characters that I thought was really cool. Um, there's they have a they kind of started going and trying to, because the team is nothing but white characters. There wasn't any characters of color or for that matter. But again, it's like one of those things that you go back to the origin and from the late 50s, early 60s, and into the 70s, and
hmm
of course the 80s. Diversity was one of those things that was unfortunately a slow process.
Yeah.
But this character was the first character that I remember seeing and going, wow, there's an Indian character. Her name was Dawnstar, and she had actual wings. She had the ability. She could have this interstellar tracking ability, and she could fly. She could fly in space.
That's
She
super
didn't have
cool.
to have any, apparatuses. She didn't need like a spacesuit or anything. Yes, her tracking ability. You know, again, you go back and you go, that's a very, you know, kind of stereotypical, somebody giving her tracking
Hmm.
abilities, and that's the problem. Like when they did kind of minority characters, they really just they didn't go all out. They didn't think about, well, let's give her this or that. It's always this kind of, even Marvel back in the day, they did the same thing with some of their minority characters. Um, I think maybe down the road for a future podcast, I may go over some of the minority characters that I wish I could see on the big screen or even the little screen, because both of these companies have they've got these characters. They want to move more and have more of them in the forefront.
Hmm.
Use them, but unfortunately, I mean, Dawnstar, kind of had that. But it was good, at least. I mean, at least for me, seeing uh, seeing this character, I was like, wow, that's really cool. Um, and hoping that they would do more. Uh, the other, let's see if I can find the. Uh,
I
oh
really do
yeah,
wish I could remember what my question was. It had to do with their powers and stuff, but I
yeah.
can't. I think the whole time I'm like actively listening, going, "What was your freaking question?"
um, the other minority character I remember, looking at and seeing, back in the day, was a character called Triok, and he had this sonic scream that could, you know, have unusual effects on folks. This guy had the worst costume that you could ever imagine. It's like a white. Think of like a white kind of a one-piece bathing suit, okay? And of course, it's not. It's cut right down the middle, bare-chested, and it has a collar, and he has white little slipper booties with little wings off the back, little pointy wings like a robin.
Oh,
And
like
this,
the typical way that they used to dress a lot of comic female characters of the
yeah,
time.
this is a black character, it's a black male character, and he has the afro and everything. It's just unfortunate that whoever designed this guy's costume, this is the whole thing about Triarch, and we don't. I want to go through characters, and I don't want to. It's a travesty what they do to this character. It is, you know, it's cool that they brought a black character into the Legion, but they just screwed it all up, in my opinion.
Right.
Uh, Anybody out there that might be listening that might actually, I mean, I like the character. I like the power set. I think if they hadn't done his backstory so weird and hadn't
It's
given
like do your homework,
yeah,
basically.
and given him such an atrocious costume, I don't know how that got passed. Like
What's his name again?
his name's Tryoc, Tyroc. Look him up. Um, it's
It's a weird name too.
yeah. I want to say he might have been one of the first, if not in the first set of black characters DC did, because I know like Black Lightning uh
Yeah.
is he was in the 70s too. Another great character, and they gave him
Oh
at least.
wow.
Are you looking at it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is unfortunate.
It looks like he gets a better costume
He
down the
does.
road, but
He
this
does.
is like,
This is him. This is his debut, and he steps out to fight alongside the Legion, and
and what year
he's
did he debut in?
um Let me
Because
see.
this is screaming like 70, like for some
Yeah,
reason
this
in
is
my head, it's like
April
70s Blackula.
April of 1976.
Okay.
Um,
It doesn't make it okay. I'm just
no,
saying, like, he
no,
was done a disservice.
and the other thing too, I mean, Mike Grell was the artist, and I mean, Mike Grell is awesome. Even the great Mike Grell could not give this guy what I mean, uh, give him any props, help him out with his costume because it is, if I had like a top five,
Yeah.
that's not a. I may do that down the road. Is is the
But
worst costume?
I could easily participate in that. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
It looks
I'll,
like in later iterations, he is given a much better
yeah.
costume. But
I'm,
this original one,
yeah.
like,
I'm harping on the past, and rightly so. But yeah, at least
right.
down the road, they gave this poor character, they gave him some better. I wish they could go back and do his origin again and make it more modern and not so. Uh, yeah, but
Well, this
uh,
is actually interesting. What I'm liking about this is that I'm learning about characters that I've never heard of. And I am a comic book reader, but what I think is interesting is that just in the brief conversation we've only been talking for like what, less than 20 minutes. I
something
feel
like
like
that.
there are superheroes that have already been created that we could easily like clean up and refine their backstory and make
Yeah,
interesting um, minority characters out
right.
of that I would be interested in as well.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
maybe others wouldn't be. I don't want to offend anyone, but it just seems like the the possibility is there. Like the quality might not necessarily be, but
right.
we can give it quality now. Like
Yeah. Everything could use like, some buff.
tweaking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tweaking, buff and polish. I mean, if they were to do, which I think they did, they just recently put out a Legion of Superhero animated film. I think Supergirl is involved in it too. I don't think Triarch is in it, but I mean, if they were to do one and they put Triarch in there, I would be like giddy as a schoolgirl because like, cool, they've got this guy in there, and
Right.
I, would be extremely happy to see what this character can do and what they could do with him as a character and give him a
Mhm.
platform and expand on that. But that's kind of what probably down the road I'll talk more on maybe a different topic, which is characters that both of these companies have that they could go into and say, okay, well, let's do a project where we put this character up there and we,
Right.
you know, because they want to do diverse characters. They want to have a variety, which I've always just loved the fact of having characters of different ethnic backgrounds, different powers. That's why I love the Legion because
Yeah.
essentially all these characters had different utility powers that kind of worked good together. Like there's another character called Wildfire, Wildfire, and again he was a character who had an accident and his body was transformed into his body was kind of transformed into like living energy. So he couldn't he had to be put into a containment suit to be able to kind of move around and not dissipate completely. I believe that's why. But
Okay.
he could use his containment suit to be able to fire energy blast and be able to fly, and he could expel or use his energy form in varieties of ways, but using the suit to kind of contain his powers and keep them together. And again, like somebody having an accident has a power. They you know they've got membership into the Legion and stuff.
Mhm.
Um, now there have been several reboots, as I've spoken before, and they've gone through a lot of different iterations. The latest was done by Bendis, I believe, and I got the first few issues, and uh, I was really excited about, this was, but at the same time, this happened right around the pandemic. And so the issues kind of came out, sporadically, because the whole comic book industry was up in arms because distribution, Diamond shut down. Comic book shops were having to close their doors or work on a very, thin time frame. So I eventually I wasn't able to get my comics. Of course, the shop that we had here in town, they had to close down permanently because of the pandemic. So I was kind of out of the loop, and like I said, I only had a couple of issues under my belt to read. I have it on my Amazon list, I believe, to get the trade paper version of everything. So
I've gone to buying the trade paper versions of comics, or even, as much as I used to hate people when they told me they did this, but for me, it's accessibility of having it in English. I also do the Comixology thing. Like Bianca and I say, we really don't want to give any money to Lord Bezos over there, but sometimes it's impossible not to. Let's just be honest.
I try to, if I'm ever in earshot or whatever of an actual comic book shop, I'll go there. Anytime I'm in Dothan, I go by the one that they have there in Dothan, and I'll kind of stock up. I'll buy trades that I have on my Amazon list. I'll pull it up and look and go, okay, they got that. All right, this saves me, and it helps your local comic book shop. But I have in kind of dire straits bought trades and hardcovers from.
We all have.
Yeah, it's a necessary. It's kind of a necessary evil in some way, but if I had my way, I would always spend my money at a comic book shop, just, because I know what it's like to be in the trenches. So, but like I was saying, the Legion has this just great cast of characters, and they all have unique backgrounds. They all come from different worlds, and those worlds, like some of them, they all have these powers. Like I was saying, Cosmic Boy, all the people, all the members of his race have these magnetic abilities. Like Shrinking Violet, her race has this whole thing about being able to shrink down, and but I always thought that just really cool and kind of neat aesthetic to these characters. And of course their names back in the day, I mean, Lightning Lad, they also had an individual named Karate Kid who had mastered all forms of martial arts. So and if you think, I mean, that's not really like a power, but I mean, he mastered all these. So I mean,
yeah, but the ability of fighting skill that you would have would be a natural ability. So right. I get it.
Yeah, they in fact, I think his test to get in was he fought Superboy and beat him. And so I mean, if you just took down Superboy with no meta powers, but you're using your own natural abilities, which you've mastered, or you've mastered all these fighting techniques, which of course, no shame on these fighting techniques, makes him a very formidable character. So it's kind of,
makes him way more human as well. And where someone could see themselves in that character. I think that's one of the things that I've always loved about comics is I want everyone to look at a comic and see themselves in a character. And so when you've got someone that has a actual talent, I guess you could say God-given talent, if that's how you look at things, that he worked hard to make better.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to like being like, no offense to the twins that were struck by lightning, but like that was a chance encounter, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. It's the characters that that have powers by accident, kind of versus somebody who fought, trained.
Right.
You look at those with a little bit more. Oh, okay. Well, that there's kind of a, like you said, there's more of a human factor to it. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, well, they really persevered and put their body through all of this and have become basically this living weapon, uh,
Exactly.
as opposed to, a lightning beast hit you
It's a
with.
likability and like
Yeah,
relatability and
exactly. Kind of bringing all this to kind of a conclusion. Um, to me, the Legion has always uh, just been one of my favorite, teams. They were always in space. It was, the 31st century. They had like this real cool, trippy space cruiser that they flew around in, kind of reminiscent of like, kind of a Star Trek era vessel. And of course, a lot of their things took, their whole backdrop was the universe. So they just kind of, did a lot of different things that kind of, you know, made this team kind of a cosmic team, similar to like the Guardians. Uh, is the best kind of example I could give, which the Guardians are a very smaller team compared to the Legion, but
how many are in the Legion together?
uh,
You
you
may have said, I apologize.
no, I didn't. I think they're, if you count like, I would say they're probably 25 to 30 members, that they
Okay.
had over the course of like I said, the different reboots that they had. I want to say like maybe 15 or 20 per, reboot to some.
Okay, so that answers my next question,
Yeah.
which was going to be like, so not all active at the same time
Yeah,
necessarily.
yeah. Yeah, because you
Okay.
got to think they would only have like a handful of these characters that they would use. If you have a team that big, it's hard to give everybody, you know, but they in the story arcs they would try to utilize,
Hmm.
you'd have one team doing something and you'd have another team kind of doing this. And um because really, I mean, I get why, they pushed the team down to 7 for, the Avengers back in the day, probably because it was like, you know we have all these characters and we can't use them all. And it's like, it's like if you're, it's just like the movies, if you're casting or you're doing the Avenger movie, like they did a perfect set of the characters they wanted to have in it, and give them all, uh screen time.
Hmm.
It's kind of the same way with the comic books. You want to be able to give all these characters some sort of thing to do, and give them some paper time,
Yeah.
paper, you know.
Well, it's just like me as like a book reader, which I know you're a book reader too. But like everyone's going to pick a different character that they like resonate or gravitate towards. And
Yeah,
so it makes it really hard when you have like, say, 15, 20 different characters that you're trying to tell all of them story, because then you've got a handful of readers going, okay, stop talking about him. I want this guy or I want
yeah,
this
yeah,
girl. And so to give everybody enough screen time or page time or whatever, I understand dropping to 7, but as like just a thought process in my head, when you said there were that many, I was like, oh, that means they can cover and protect more of the earth, is what I
yeah.
was thinking, like from
Right.
that standpoint. But from like the reader, like this isn't real, we're reading a story standpoint or reviewing like a movie, I get having a smaller group, because we saw it even with the Avengers is a great example. We saw it, they broke them up into like groups where like these 3 were off doing this thing and
Yeah.
this 4 were over here researching this thing, because
Hmm.
having them all in one room together on
Yeah.
screen created a lot of conflicts, but then in general it was just like too much at one time.
Yeah. The only time you kind of see like the whole Avenger team is like when they're, I remember like in the beginning of Age of Ultron, they're all grouped together and
Hmm.
they're all assaulting that stronghold that Hydra
Yeah.
had. And And then of course at the end of the Avengers where they're fighting the Shikari and they're all in there doing their thing.
Right.
That's the moment for the group. Through the movie they're all going to have like different jobs to do, so that gives them their own little screen time or whatever. In the case of, this is me still being sour that Hawkeye in the first movie was relegated to being a slave to Loki and not really getting, to me they really cheesed him, but again that's because I love Hawkeye, and that again that's a whole another iceberg that don't want to derail our cast right now on that. But yeah, in closing, I think like for me, the Legion is again it's just a really fun team, and they've had some really great story arcs, and if you're looking, if any of this interests you and you're looking at maybe wanting to pick up maybe some trades, because that's probably going to be your best way to get everything. It's just to kind of go online and look for the Legion of Superheroes and trade paper and kind of look around and see. There's quite a few. There's quite a few out there. And I will probably down the road and in other podcasts I'll like my next thing I want to do, since I kind of focused on a DC team, I want to flip over to Marvel and do one of the teams down the road that's kind of my top team for Marvel, because of course the Legion is my favorite team. I know Justice League and Justice Society, those are right up there, kind of right there close to them, because I love both those teams too, but yeah, the Legion's my favorite. So,
did you have a favorite Legion superhero when you were actively, because you've been reading these for a very long time? I'm not saying since the dawn of them, because you're not that old, but I mean, you've been reading this for a very long time.
Yeah, actually, Ultra Boy was my favorite growing up, just because of the uniqueness of his abilities. I just thought was so unusual, because he has to access all these powers, but one at a time. And so I thought that's a hindrance, but at the same time it's kind of a neat thing, because it's like when you think about Superboy or Superman, these characters you look at them and you're like, it's not a whole lot that can mess them up outside the kryptonite, or a really strong supervillain. But if you had those powers and like you had to only switch them on and off,
right?
And so like if you're flying around and somebody decides, hey, I'm going to fire a missile at you, and you see this missile coming, and you're flying, is like, well, I got to switch my flight off and turn on my invulnerability. You'd have to do that split second, when you get hit with it, and then be able to reactivate your flight. And I was just thinking about all those scenarios and thinking, wow, that's, this character really has to think on his feet all the time. Superman and the other powerful characters like that, they just do. They're punching, they're invulnerable all the time, so they're not worried. This character has to think about what he has to do. And as a kid, I just always, the more unusual, the more non-mainstream path of powers and abilities, I'm gonna focus on that. So yeah, Ultra Boy's my favorite. And of course, Mad Eagle Lad, he's down there, but I mean, it's more of this character's so absurd, there's nobody that's gonna top that. But yeah, Ultra Boy, that's and I think even now he's still holds that title.
So I was looking up, and it appears that in February of this year there was a Legion of Superheroes. It's one of the animated films that they're rated like PG-13. It came out. The voice cast is incredible. But I'm assuming it's kind of a mix-up because we have like Supergirl, Batman, Flash, but then we
Right.
have like Phantom Girl and
Hmm.
Arms Fall Off Boy and
Yeah.
Dawnstar. And
Yep.
have you watched this yet?
No, I haven't. I'm hoping that it'll hit HBO Max or
Hmm.
whatever, because that's where all the DC stuff
Yeah,
is, at least for right now. I mean, DC is in just such a state right now. I don't,
it's all in limbo.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, I am planning on seeing it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't hit HBO, then, you know, um, I might see if my friend who has a, a particular server full of,
Arr.
yeah, yeah, arg. I may ask him if he can find it for me. So,
This is
uh,
our mutual friend. I guarantee you he can find it.
yeah, 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 he can. So, and I'm not condoning arg, but
Mm-mm.
if
Sometimes you do what you have to do,
yeah, I mean, I pay
especially
for,
if you live in another country and can't get everything.
yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah.
I pay for two streaming services. I pay for Paramount and I pay for HBO. And
Um,
I pay for Disney through my Verizon. So technically
yeah.
I have three, but really there's, I count just some as two
You
because
forget because it's part of your phone bill, so it's just
yeah,
like
and it really
paying.
is
Yeah.
it's not that bad. I think it's like
No.
$7, but I, I'll drop them at the end. Like HBO, I'm kind of on the fence with because for one, they're canceling Doom Patrol after the first
Mm-hmm.
season, which, you
So
know,
frustrating.
it's frustrating, but you know what? I'm almost kind of like Teen Titans and Doom Patrol. I'm almost thinking that it's okay to kind of, you come down to a point where you stop a series.
Yeah,
Sometimes
they
you can
canceled
just,
Pennyworth too. Like, what is
yeah,
wrong
yeah,
with them?
yeah. It's stuff is like, you never know. Nothing is safe. Nothing is
No.
safe. But if I drop anything, it'll probably be HBO down the road.
I
Uh,
went ahead and dropped it.
well, they're only like Paramount has got Star Trek, and Star Trek Brave
Yeah.
New World caught me and has kept me. And then this season of Picard has been just, a
Yeah.
nostalgia kind of just like it's a big warm hug. So I'm
Picard
really,
is phenomenal. And then since you mentioned Star Trek, I've already texted you about it, but if you're into Star Trek, I highly recommend the animated Below or Lower Decks or Lower Decks. I think it's just called
yeah,
Lower Decks.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've got that pinned
I've
to
been
watch.
watching
So
it with my son, who I can't believe I'm saying this. Oh my God, is almost 17. And there's only been a
yeah,
couple of episodes like later on into season 2 that I've been like a little like red in the face when we were watching it. There
I
are like there is adult humor and stuff in it, but for the most part, like it just kind of like not goes over his head. Like he's almost 17, he knows, but like he doesn't care. But there was
yeah,
one that I was like, oh my God, this is so blatant. Please let it stop. Please let it stop. And then it like
yeah,
ended, and I was like, okay, we're just not gonna talk about it.
right, right, yeah,
So if you're listening to this and you hear me say animated Star Trek, watch it with son. No, like no, don't, no, 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 no. My kid is almost 17, and I know what he can handle and what he's allowed. So no.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Overall, it's actually not that bad. But it's not for children. There's
I,
like blood and hands being cut off and like things like
I,
that.
yeah. It's. I think they're kind of trying to do the Rick and Morty thing with Lower Decks. I mean,
Yeah,
not entirely, but in that kind of vein of humor, or
right.
that kind of which
Yeah.
it's all. I mean, it's all good. I definitely will check it out. So, um,
And I remembered what my question was because
okay,
I had my tab open this whole time and I forgot that it was that. So earlier you were saying there had been a ton of iterations or different versions of it along the years, especially since it's been created since like the 50s.
hmm
Um, but when I was Googling before you and I started recording, and I told you like, oh my God, I have to tell you this or ask you this, both, when we start, and you got to the iterations part and it was like, that's where I can do it. So I
yeah,
apologize, boys and girls, but I was Googling Legion of Superheroes, and I was about to start typing like questions or, things, synopsis, where I could ask you questions. And for some reason it was like, did you mean Legion of Superheroes Wuthering Heights? And I went, huh?
That's
So I can't find like an exact, but apparently they're in the search engine together. Those two phrases together.
That's weird.
Have you ever come across that? Like, is there any?
No, not that I know of. I mean,
I don't.
I think your search engine's drunk, so you probably need to,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's odd. That's very odd.
I just thought that was really funny, really, really funny.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of humorous and
but
very,
I mean,
very
things
odd.
like that happen. There's like Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies, and there's
yeah.
So I mean, maybe someone wrote like a fan fiction or something, which who knows?
Right. You never know. I mean,
I would actually probably be here for that, like Legion of Superheroes, but Wuthering Heights, but with Legion of Superheroes.
I would be kind of interested in, and I may do this later tonight. I may go and do a deep dive into fan fiction with the Legion. It might be dangerous, but
it might get into what we call Bianca No Zone.
Well, I'll look, and I'll I know when to go. Okay, yeah, this is it for me. It's time to bail, because I've gone down icebergs before, and I've deep dived the rabbit holes through a lot of things, and
it's very easy to do.
Yeah. And I've come back out a little bit scarred in some area, and it's like, hey, you know what? It's your fault. You kept reading and you kept looking.
Exactly. But, this, and I think people that like are listening to us are probably people that know us, so they know this. But like, I will read just about anything. So sometimes I end up in a deep hole that's like, you are the one who kept reading. Yeah. You did this to yourself. You can have no one to be mad at but yourself.
Yeah. There's, there are times where it's like, I'll go down the iceberg of like Final Fantasy or some sort of D&D topic trope or something, and it's like, wow, this really took a hard turn, and it's like,
there's
okay, well,
some D&D cozy kind of like adventure books that I was recommended. And then they were like, if you read, Goodreads or any of those are always like, if you read this, you'll like this. If you read this, you'll like this. And then you get into this hole. And then like by book number 4 that you think is supposed to be like a D&D-esque cozy fantasy, you're like 3 chapters in going, he did what to what with a what? Like,
yeah.
Yeah. So it's a dangerous slope.
But that's I guess that's going to be it for this episode, our second episode again, which I want to kind of harp on that, because we never really got a second episode when we did this in the beginning. But again, we had so many things that kind of fell on us at that point. But we got number 2 here in the box, and
Well, and I think on it in being like transparent, if I remember correctly, we did record an episode 2.
We did.
And I won't say
right.
what it was about, but like you and I were both like in a bad headspace about that topic. Mm-hmm. We were a little angry about that topic. We were excited, but we were like really kind of frustrated and let down by certain individuals that were taking part in this production of this. I think we decided not to put it out there because we listened back to it like later, and both of us were like, we are those toxic people that we're always complaining about.
I'm totally fine with that never being aired, because
I don't know if I even have it anymore, to be honest with you. If it makes you feel better.
Yeah, well, that's good. As I stated, in our previous episode about our own transparency about having, for me, being really toxic, and it really killing that one part of me that I really that I love, and that's my hobbies, my fan, the things that I'm passionate about. So, but yeah, I mean, this is our second episode, and I appreciate all of y'all that are listening in. And again, if you have any questions or comments or suggestions, just please let us know. How can they let us know?
So I think at one point we had an Instagram. I'm not sure. Vamped, so people can come ask like basic questions.
Yeah.
I think we did. I really think we did. I just have to like remember how to get into it and stuff. So if you go on Instagram and you find Lady in the Beard, please go ahead and follow us. And then of course, Kelley, your preferred method for people reaching out to you is Instagram as well, correct?
Yeah. I'm looking right now to see if we're.
I really feel like we were on Instagram.
I think we were too, but we may have. Yeah, here we are. Lady and the Beard podcast. And yeah, our information on how to contact us are in there too. We have a few pictures, but yeah, that's where you can contact us. If you have any questions or comments or like I said, if you just want to say hi or that, how your day is going.
Yeah.
It's all welcomed. It's all welcomed.
Yeah, exactly. But they can find you individually on there as well.
Yeah.
It's HKP2814, I believe. Right.
I believe so. It's also you can reach me at Tenzil2814. TENZIL 2814 for Instagram.
Oh, perfect. Okay.
So yeah, it was good talking to you, Miranda.
You too. So we plan to be back once a month right now. If something happens down the road that we can become a bi-monthly thing, we will. But at this point, we are going to continue with the once a month. Next month, we plan on covering the topic of books, authors, some of my favorite things. One of my all-time favorite things to do is read. So Kelley is going to collaborate some questions and ask me about books.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
And so you guys can message us and we'll post updates there and reminders.
That sounds good.
Yeah, so until then, you can also reach me on Instagram. I am easily found at Mom's a Nerd. Of course, please check out the website, placetobenation.com, where you can access our podcast, all the podcasts of anything on the Place to Be Nation. And I would like to give a huge thank you and shout out to our editor. He has a better name, producer. I guess we call him our producer. But I would just like to say a shout out to our producer and my website owner. He and I own Place to Be Nation together. And then Andy. Just say thank you for allowing us back and doing everything for us to getting the pod ready. So I really appreciate that. And to everyone that has rejoined us here and listened, I appreciate you as well. And hopefully we will see you next time.
Yes, definitely.
Bye.
Bye.